two, one. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the very first episode of I have no idea what the fuck I'm going to call this show. That might be the actual name, right?
I was thinking that would be awesome.
All right, that would be pretty awesome. I am your host, Marco Antonio Alvarez, and I decided to start this thing to essentially have fun, to have people that I find interesting, people that I like, friends of mine, and potentially even enemies of mine, which could be, for a good show, on board to discuss about whatever comes up, kind of like a stream of consciousness thing. So I am very stoked to see my friend, my buddy on the inaugural show of, I have no idea what the fuck I'm going to call this. Ladies and gentlemen, may I present to you Wesley Moser.
What's up? Nice to be here, Marco. Good to see you
Thanks,
in the
buddy.
flesh.
Yeah, man, you too. It's been a while.
100%.
Yeah, man.
I was gonna do a little heart thing, but then I didn't want to like weird people out, so I guess we won't do that. A little virtual Zoom.
Hold on, dude.
See if we can fix it. See if we can.
There we go.
There we go. There we go.
Kind of looks like a heart. I had to like figure out how to fucking fix my hand. I'm all like, dude, which way?
It's like a mental exercise.
It kind of is, dude. It kind of is, man. All right, dude. So, quick question. Like, something that's fascinated me about you is that you have a big ass family, right? Now, I thought I had a big ass family growing up. Now, granted, my family was a little disjointed because my dad was married twice. He started having kids with his first wife when he was 17, right? And then he met my mom later in life when he was like fucking 46 or 45, right? Then he had another batch of kids. Mm-hmm. Altogether, that's seven, right? My oldest brother he passed away years ago. He was at the time 31 years older than me. Right.
Wow.
Now, crazy. In your case, you are one of 16.
Yep. Actually, I'm one of 14. A family of 16, so two parents and then 14 kids. Oh. But yeah, it was. So you had seven in total. I had nine sisters, just sisters, and 15 years of my life, I only had sisters. So I was nine sisters, the only boy, until I was 15, and then I had five brothers on the back end. So, and now they're done.
Holy shit, dude. So like your mom was just like, I'm done having babies. She's like, go get a vasectomy to your dad, or like, what the fuck?
Yeah, they decided to cut the cord literally. But no, it was an interesting like childhood growing up and everything. And you can probably attest to this. Like well, actually, I don't know if you can, because you said you were like one of the younger ones. I was one of the older ones. So for me, it was like I had to take on the role of like a parent before I became a parent, which was good because it developed leadership skills and stuff. But it was different than like the normal childhood because again, when you're going out in public, there's a herd of kids, and you got to think in terms of like protecting them, making sure they're taken care of. One of them's running in the street or needs a diaper change or whatever, and you got to like, so you're learning those skills when you're like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and it strengthens you, but it also challenges you. So that's kind of but it's I love my family. I live 30 minutes from all of them, so
that's awesome.
All good. Yeah.
With that being said, like having that experience, do you ever want to have children of your own?
Because of that experience? Well,
not necessarily because of it, but since you've experienced that, right? And having to, be part of that where you're like, oh my God, I got to do this and do that. Is it one of those things where you're like, dude, I don't want to have any kids? Or is it one of those things where you're like, maybe one of these days it'd be nice to have, 16 of my own?
Not 16, but maybe like 4 or 3. That's like my ideal. Like I'm thinking of like having 2 boys, 1 girl.
With 1 woman or like 2 or 3 women?
17 concubines, just all man and woman.
And whoever gets pregnant first.
No. Yeah, no, I'm a super believer in like monogamy. I'm not even super religious, but I think that the idea of it is good. It's good to pursue that and to force yourself to be loyal and to become the type of person that can be disciplined like that and to stay with one. Like I think of my grandparents, they've been married 50 years. And I can't think of anybody else that has a more functional marriage and then also family dynamic. So that's where I get my values from, is like whatever they have, like how do I get that? How do I want that? I want to live with somebody until I die. Like the thought of that's compelling to me. And to answer your question about the kids thing, so my youngest brother's he just turned 3, so he was born when I was like 21, I think, and I see him as a son. I don't
Mhm,
really see him as a brother. I mean,
mhm.
he is my brother. I know he's my brother, but I do have that yearning to be a dad. Like it compels you to, it forces you to be selfless. Because when I want to think about myself and, oh, I don't, whatever, I think about him and like, well, if I did this certain action, it wouldn't make him happy, or he would suffer, or whatever. So it like forces you to move forward in spite of the darkness of life that sometimes gets cast on you.
Sure.
So I think it's a net positive, and yeah, definitely, I definitely will have kids someday when I'm ready. How
You
about you?
make
You have one, right? I think.
I have one that I know of.
Oh, gee.
No, I'm just kidding, dude. No, I do have one. I have one son. He's 5.5, and I'm not even going to say that he was a surprise, right? Because I don't believe in surprises, or I don't believe in accidents anymore, right? And it's one of those things where, because now we start getting into some tricky philosophical grounds where it's like, do I believe that we live in a deterministic universe, that kind of a thing? Now we start skirting around like is free will a thing? This is what I'm driving at. Did you ever see the movie Kung Fu Panda? First one.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
It was awesome.
All right. Shifu, right? Master
Mm.
Shifu was all pissed off that, Po was the dragon warrior. And he was just like, dude, he's hanging, he's like basically complaining to Master Oogway. And he's like, it must have been an accident. And then Oogway's like, there are no accidents, right? And that's very firmly rooted in Taoism, which Kung Fu is influenced heavily by it. That Chinese martial that flavor of Chinese martial art, right? There's so many subsets to Kung Fu, and I think having that particular mindset it goes back to extreme ownership, right, and extreme accountability and extreme acceptance of one's life, right? Like you've got Jocko's obviously, right? I'm a huge fan. If that wasn't obvious, you
If
have
you
his
couldn't
version.
tell.
If you couldn't tell, this is like my I love Jocko wall with Master Yoda and Socrates. If you couldn't tell,
Yeah, like the
so
first chapter on the wall.
I know, right? It's just like he's gonna fucking watch this.
Yeah.
Who the fuck's this guy? My whole
Real,
point
real
is,
quick, because I'm idiot. I want you to finish point, but who do you like better, David Goggins or Jocko? Because they're kind of the same to me, but I lean towards Goggins. Just real quick, 5 second detour.
oh, that's fine. We can go back to the other thing. Oh man,
Because
I
they
think
both kind of have the same message, right? I mean, Jocko's more about like discipline. Dick Goggins is more about embrace suffering, but they're both kind of the same niche, I guess.
yeah. Remember the Courage Wolf meme and the Insanity
Uh,
Wolf meme that came out back in the day?
I don't.
Fuck, dude.
No.
Yeah, that's true. We got like 20 years plus. So we'll have to here. This is what we're gonna do with part of this show is we're gonna have a little fun here, right? Let me know what my screen looks like. Actually, you know what? Let's just do this. I'm gonna share screen. I think this is gonna be a cool part of the show is we'll be able to do
Oh, geez.
what's that?
Feels like I'm about to watch a sales pitch or something. You're like, all right,
Oh
let
my
me
god. Oh,
show you the offer here.
let me show you the offer here, Wesley. Okay. So this is what we're selling here. We are selling Courage Wolf memes, right? Um, so know your Courage Wolf. Now we have the Courage Wolf package here for $2,000. Okay, so you see that one. It
Jesus.
says, "What doesn't kill you is going to die." Right.
I like that.
So that's Courage Wolf, or like, you're the result of 4 billion years of evolutionary success. Fucking act like it. Okay, cool. Now there's Courage Wolf, and then there's Insanity Wolf.
Mm.
Insanity Wolf is his cousin that says physical disability, life on hard mode. How about mental disability, playing life in insanity mode? So
What's the deeper meaning behind that? Because I'm trying to like.
so I'm bringing it back. I'm going to bring it back when you asked me about Goggins and Jocko. So in some sense, I'm going to say that Jocko is Courage Wolf and Goggins is Insanity Wolf.
Yeah, yeah.
You
I can
see,
see that. I,
you
I
see
can
it?
see that.
Yeah, that's kind of
Yep.
like where it's.
I'm a ride or die for Goggins because he's like changed my life. I know he's transformed, like, impacted both of us, but he's like another type of animal. You need someone on like the extreme of like where you're trying to chase, even if you're never gonna like we're never gonna be Goggins where we're like literally like need knee surgeries like every other year type of thing because we're like pushing ourselves to the brink. But we need someone like that, kind of like God, where it's like that ultimate like extraction of like everything that we value most so that we have something like a North Star to aim toward through this journey of life, and I think Goggins is that North Star of like seek discomfort, for my life. So for him, he's
Goggins.
always gonna,
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
no, that was it. That was good.
I was going to say Goggins is like one of the platonic forms. Remember we
Spirit
talked.
animal.
Remember we were talking about this the other day about the platonic forms, right? And Plato,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
Goggins is kind of like this archetype of that type of dude or whoever he is, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
the joke. I made a joke the other day, and it was a while back on Facebook about like, what if Goggins can't stay hard? And that was a double entendre, right? It was just like, he's going to take a Viagra, but it was like, it's more than just him not being able to have an erection, because the term stay hard
Right.
means a lot of different things. But the thing is this, it's like, I wouldn't be surprised if Goggin like runs himself into the ground as an old man and dies of a heart attack because he just
Oh,
keeps going
yeah,
because he's like, fuck it, dude.
for sure. And that's his hero's journey.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I told you this before because I've been wrestling with this quote from Carl Jung, where he said like every man is living out a myth,
Mm-hmm.
and you should probably like evaluate what myth you're living out because it could be a tragedy. Like he's warning
Mm-hmm.
you, like the story that you could be living out in your life could end in like catastrophe. Not saying that that's what Goggins is doing, but he could almost like his story is almost that of a martyr, that of someone that's like going to that extreme to where if that wasn't his story where he rode off into the sunset and eventually like died in battle, I mean like that's who he is. So like he probably, I mean, I hope not. I hope he lives to be 190, but we'll see.
Who knows, man? There was a there was a Japanese writer named Yukio Mishima, and he committed seppuku back in 1973. I think it was like November 10th, 1973. And this guy was one of Japan's most celebrated writers. Grew up a sickly child. He couldn't join the Imperial Army during World War II because he was weak, right? And he kind of faked his illness a little bit too at the time. And the things that he would write about, he was always obsessed about with beauty, themes of beauty and strength, right? He became obsessed with strength, and he found bodybuilding, and at some point he created a private army that was espoused the principles of Bushido, right? It was some type of like cultural preservation, like ultra nationalist Japanese private army that he created of students that were following him, right? And so one day he went to go visit a general that he was friends with to say, hey, I wanted to show you this katana sword that I have. It's an authentic 16th century sword, whatever. He goes in there with his top guys, says three junior officers, if you will, and holds the general hostage, barricades himself in the office, calls for the garrison to form up, and he delivers this speech about Japan losing its soul, its soul of the warrior of the Bushi. Goes in, and him and his top guy commit seppuku.
Mm.
Right. And it was like, oh. And it was one of those things where this guy kind of crystallized his life in his physical form right there at the height of his strength and beauty. At least that's how he
Yeah.
wanted you to look at it that way. Right. So kind of like, let's say, Bruce Lee, when Bruce Lee died at 30 something years old, and you see his last film, Enter the Dragon, he was just fucking ripped and fucking in shape, right? And he just pushed it, and bam, he died from some like cerebral swelling. And so it's kind of like one of those things where, that idea of like living fast, dying young. How do you want to live your life? How do you live your life is going to dictate, I think, how you're going to die. So going back to Goggins, right? How is he living his life? Hardcore training all the time, right? as
Yeah.
opposed to, let's say, the guy who doesn't train, who eats like shit, who sleeps like shit, doesn't take care of himself, who's fat, overweight, he's got a shitty mindset.
Right.
You could,
And that goes back to like what we you and I talk about a lot is like behind the scenes is like trying to create like a compelling story for your life so that if you were like when the time comes, because we're both inevitable, and you reminded me of this yesterday when I was worried about some other thing that was inevitable. You're like, here's the ultimate inevitability. You're gonna die. Hate to break it to you. Like eventually the earth is gonna burn, the sun's gonna get, whatever's gonna happen, it's gonna happen, like it's inevitable. So like, and I think about that a lot, and I try to remind myself of that a lot. Like the ancient Stoics used to have a uh, a skull on their desk to remind them of the fact that they're mortal and they're going to die, so they don't take any moment for granted. So I literally got myself a skull, put it on my desk, and I'm like, I got to remember this because the thing that I would hate the most in life, when I get to the end of my road, is looking back and saying that wasn't worth dying for.
mm,
And so, like for me, it's like I want seppuku in a nutshell for people. I believe, and I could be interpreting this, but um, I think there's two forms of it, right? One of them is if you lose like honor or something, you kill they used to do that because it's like the ultimate shame and they're not living to their highest being or whatever that is. The other version of that is like if they fulfilled their highest form, their highest being, there's no other reason to continue because they completed the mission. Am I
no, that's
that somewhat accurate?
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's either, it's kind of like, it's the same concept that the Roman soldiers had with falling upon your sword, right? Where this is like, if you've been shamed or dishonored so much by whatever thing that you did or didn't do, then you can reclaim your honor by taking your life. So,
Right.
seppuku or
And
harikari, right?
and again, that's one of the extremes. Like with Goggins, it's like an extreme of like, wow. And I think any extreme isn't necessarily healthy. I think life beauty is like found in the middle of the extremes. But my point to that is long-windedly is like I want to find something that I want to create a story for my life is worth dying for that does compel me so that when I look back, Jung said, like at the end of my life, I lived out a myth that was ultimately that of a conqueror, that of a hero, like a hero's journey,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which is what Joseph Campbell paralleled in his Hero with a Thousand Faces. I don't know if you've ever seen like heard of that,
Mm-hmm.
but all the mythologies throughout history have this story arc of this hero's journey, this psychological journey that we undertake in life. And I think honestly, I think that's the most important thing. And that's why we always go back to that every time we talk is like, what are those principles that are governing our lives and moving us forward? Because I mean, what else are we doing other than wasting time, other than taking this existence, whatever it is, for granted, right? So
100%, dude. 100%. Right? How many people are doing that on a daily? I did that shit for a long time, taking it for granted before I got healthy again, before I got strong again, before I started taking ownership of my life, right? Going
mm,
back to the thing that we were talking about extreme ownership and accountability and acceptance, right? There is an idea that's even more extreme than extreme ownership, right? And it's something that Alan Watts has talked about. And it's one of those things where he says, it's one of my favorite Alan Watts quotes where he says, "What if you were the evil gleam in your father's eye the night you were conceived?"
mm, interesting.
Now, the
That's
Tibetans,
you got to unpack that.
I'm going to unpack that right now. The Tibetans, right?
All right.
I'm going to check our time real quick too. Okay. Time fucking flies. The Tibetans, they believe when you die, right? Like Hindus and Buddhists and other they believe in reincarnation. When you die, I might be saying this wrong. Hopefully, I'm not. I'm pretty sure I researched it. But you go into the bardo, right? This bardo essentially is like this way station for souls, right? And then at that point, you pretty much pick your next womb to go into, depending on what you did in the past life. You're like, I want to go there, right? So what Alan Watts is saying is this: is like, what if you were responsible for coming into this world? Jean Paul Sartre, the French philosopher, he says, no, you're not responsible. You're thrown into the world. But once you're here, then you're responsible, right? Alan Watts is like, nah, fuck that. Let's get extreme. All right. I think that's a more extreme approach than what Jocko or Goggins or anyone else says when it's just like, no, what if you were that responsible for your life that you literally were like, I'm going to be born in the womb of a woman who is addicted to crack, or I'm going to be born in the womb of a woman that was this or that.
Mm.
because this is what Alan Watts explains further when he says, what if you've lived so many lives already, right? What if, I mean, what if this is the dream right here that you or I are in? This is the dream. And when we die, that's when we wake up. And we have lived countless lives. In a past life, you were a prince, a king, a warrior, and you lived that so many times. You're like, fuck, dude, I am bored of that. I think I'm gonna fucking be born a deformed baby, or I think I'm gonna be born a fucking this or that. And so that type of like radical acceptance of one's life, it's a really difficult concept to like actually just, you know what I'm saying, to be like, yeah, what if? Like it took me a while to wrestle with it, to just so to say, what if that is the case, dude?
Mm.
Like, what if I
Well,
did?
I think scientifically it is the case. A little bit is the case because it's kind of like the Mona Lisa, where like there's the reason why the Mona Lisa is beautiful is because he has like layers of the painting, and that's kind of like our genetic code, genetically, and uh, whether behavior is inherited or whatever is like a conversation that we're still kind of trying to discover, I guess. But we are like the byproduct of our parents and their parents and their parents and their parents. Whether it comes to like predispositions to mental problems or diseases or whatever, or if it's just behavioral or whatever. So like we are the culmination of all the lives that have been lived before us. Like all those journey, like everything that's culminated over the past millions or billions or however whatever you believe before us. We're the fine layer Mona Lisa of whatever exists now. And the tragedy would be, however you manifest to like you kind of are getting at, I think, is to be a victim, and instead of saying no, that I choose this life. I choose
Mm-hmm,
this this version of myself to play out,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
because there's a lot of people like us, there's a lot of people like me that probably deal with the same things that could benefit from me overcoming them and sharing my story of how I did it. Right. Maybe that's what gives me meaning in life, is just to overcome myself. So
is that,
um
well, that's a good question. Like, what gives you how do you give your life meaning?
I'm right now I'm like trying to discover that, like what is the ultimate life worth living. And I think for me it's like overcoming, you know, my inner dragon, like overcoming the darkness within myself. And because you have to have and there's these axiomatic claims in science, right? Like we have to believe that all matter, like every reaction is an equal and opposite. There's some things we have to just accept in order for science and life to just exist. It's like axiomatic claims. So like I have this axiomatic belief that like fundamentally most people are good. Fundamentally, like life is better than not non-life. Fundamentally, like there's hope at the end of the tunnel. And if I can believe those things and like whatever darkness there is, I think the compelling story, if you will, is just like overcoming all of that and getting to the other side. And it's kind of beautiful too when you're in the, you know, back to Goggins, when you're in the muck and you're still climbing out of that in spite of it. There's something beautiful about that. Like you're becoming you're like Christ in that sense at that in that moment. Like you're higher than just you're a higher being than just this mortal, you know, animalistic body. It's hard to explain, but I think that's kind of like it's almost gets religious at that point. I think that's what meaning is just like um creating a compelling story.
Yeah,
I think for me at least, but
yeah, 100
could be
percent.
wrong.
I don't know. I think it's about, you know, it's been said before, right? I mean, here's the thing, right? There's nothing new under the sun. Nothing, right? But I think it's important to bring up these things and talk about these things and to get enough people hip to these things. And one of them is like, you know, what kind of story are you creating for yourself, right?
Mm.
You know, I'm sure back in the day it was just like, you know, young man, what kind of cuneiform tablet are you creating for yourself? And then it was like, what kind of scroll are you creating for yourself? And like, what kind of tomb are you creating for yourself? And now these days it's like, you know, and probably in the 20s, like, what kind of talkie are you creating for yourself, kid? And it's like, if your life is a movie, which, you know, art imitates life. Oh, there it is. The 10-minute marker. We're going to have to wrap this up. That was already half an hour, buddy. Pretty good.
No worries.
If because art's imitating life, right? And just like you were saying earlier with the hero's journey, it's got the same type of shit that all stories are the same. All compelling stories are the same. What kind of story do you want to author for yourself? What kind of life do you want to live? What kind of life do you want to have to when, like, the day that you die, the people that know you, the people that love you, what kind of things are they going to say about you? You know what I mean? Those stories like, oh, dude, it's one time Wesley. Oh, man. It's one time Wesley. Oh, man. It's one time.
Yeah. We're gonna have to have another like part two of this because we kind of like laid the framework of a beautiful like telling your story about how you overcame addiction and my mental health stuff and
Oh yeah, because I wanted to. I still
all
want
that
to. Yeah,
stuff.
dude. I still want to ask you about the half marathon you did, like the
I
craziness
know,
about it. Where I was like, you've
I
only
know,
like run like. I was like, you're gonna
I
okay.
know.
Want to talk about that? Well, yeah. So we got a ton of stuff to talk about, but this was a good first start. So thank you, buddy, for
100%.
thank you for joining me, man. And yeah, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. And like I said, I have no idea what the fuck to call this thing, bro. If you got any ideas, send them my way. Whoever's watching, if you got some ideas, send them my way. Um, I've asked Chat GPT. We didn't even get a chance to play with it. Actually, let's actually we got like a few minutes. Let's play with it real quick.
We should add, that should be the closing thing. Chat GPT. What should we call this
let's
this
see.
story?
Let's
I've
go
actually
to.
I've never touched this yet,
Oh really?
even though I'm like super into like I've never even like touched it.
Oh dude, I've been like mini obsessed with it.
Let's see.
They're having issues right now because people are like using the fuck out of it today. It's like, of course they are. Okay, so let's see. What's a good question to ask it? It's all about the question, right? Since we're in sales, we know this. It's all about the question you're asking.
Well, today we were talking about, yeah, we need to elaborate on sales on our next meeting, but we were talking about compelling story and everything. So maybe we could ask it like, what's the compelling, what gives life meaning, or what's a something like that.
Oh, well, here, check this out.
What's a compelling story I could live?
What gives life? We'll ask it this one question right here. What gives life meaning? See how fast it does it.
It's gonna say buy my coaching program, and I'll tell you.
Yeah, no shit. There are many different ways to find meaning in life, and what gives life meaning can vary greatly from person to person. Some people find meaning through relationships and connections with others, while others find it through personal achievements or helping others. Some people find meaning in spirituality or religious beliefs, while others find it in their sense of purpose or impact on the world. Ultimately, the meaning of life is something that each individual must determine for themselves based on their own experiences, values, and beliefs.
Hmm. Yep. But determining it for yourself goes back to the story thing, but I know it's assimilating all the data on the internet, but so maybe humans are all clueless, but you know,
I'm thinking for the next one, we definitely should have the AI as a, you know how Rogan has Jamie? So
right?
it's just,
Oh, that you should do that. That should be your shtick. Like you're like, hey Jamie, or hey ChatGPT, let's figure that out.
or just call him chat, right? Just like
Have it
chat,
chime in to
just
the
have it chime.
conversation.
That would be the funniest thing if you can like put it through like a voice program where it just reads it back to you. It's like the meaning of life. I'm like, oh sweet, thanks buddy, you're welcome.
You probably have an extension like that, I would imagine. I mean,
Oh,
it's just
I'm sure
text to speech.
hey, we'll just type it in. Like, can you create a program that gives you a voice? It's like done.
Right.
Cool. All
Awesome,
right,
man.
buddy. Thank you so much, man. Ladies and gentlemen,
Awesome.
that's been the show. Like I said, no idea what the fuck to call it. Give me some ideas. And see, I can't.
Let's
Here we
try it
go.
again.
Let's try it again, bro.
All right.
Right there, right there, right there. That looks like a burrito.
Yeah. Terrible heart, but all right.
All right, buddy. Take it easy.
Yeah.
All right,